Hi, Colleen.
Hey Mel, good to see you.
Good to see you too. So we all know about clients that don't always line up with what an IFS demo looks like. Like we see these beautiful IFS demos that do these beautiful unburdenings in trainings, or we, do practice groups with folks who really know their systems. And then we leave the trainings, we get to our office, and everything seems messy. And we hear this from students a lot in consult groups and in trainings. And so we really want to offer a space to really give folks some different tools to help with when things go messy and you can't drop in and do insight. And some of the typical IFS skills don't always land for some of these clients.
Yeah, totally. When I came home from my level one, I had a bunch of complex clients and I just found myself going back to my defaults, my default settings, the way I did therapy before, because these systems were not going right into inside work. And
Mhm.
so I got really super discouraged. I felt like, why is the magic not happening like it did in my level one? And so I started really working on what's going wrong. What am I not getting? And so these trainings, the big overarching thing is how do we help clients with more polarized systems, more heavily burdened, more complex histories
Mhm.
to move into this work, still being true to the model, but I've added a few things. We're offering the first one, fun and creative ways to help clients unblend. It's just a bunch of techniques that I've learned to externalize parts.
Mhm.
So that's the first one.
And I imagine even in that first one that we're talking about of just fun and creative ways to externalize parts, it could be a really good ways for folks to, or tools for folks to use with clients, but also folks or tools for folks to use on themselves. And in between session tools where therapists could leave their clients with some of these ideas of how they might be able to unblend and use some of this outside of session as well.
Yeah, most clients don't use all of them. They kind of find a groove, but you just do what's ready to hand. And so I'm going to talk about all of that in that training. I think it actually will be really fun.
Yeah, and I think it would help with, different ways to be able to see your parts and understand your parts and like kind of scaffolding, but also really helpful ways to help folks unblend when we use some of these externalizing techniques too.
Exactly. The parts especially that keep showing up, the protectors that keep showing up in therapy over and over and over again, and the client thinks that they are them.
Mm.
And to be able to kind of begin to talk about that part outside themselves and then see it represented is just a huge experience of unblending. And it may be the first time that they really recognize that that is a part, especially if you can do it with the parts that are habitually blending with your clients, and you. I have this part that is continually in attach, like, or fawn. I mean, it just keeps coming back if I'm under a horrible amount of stress.
Mhm.
And I think this part's pretty unburdened, but it still has this sort of groove in my brain, like, I'll do whatever you want, just don't yell at me. And so if I can just put this on my bookshelf right next to, my wherever I'm going to be, it can really help. It's just our systems are kind of sweetly concrete in that way.
Mhm. I love that. I have a figuring it out part that always jumps in, and I have this little tiny Buddha, and I put it on my desk downstairs. So when I'm with that person, I remember listen in curiosity, Mel, pull back and listen. And it's really helpful, even those small little pieces.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about exactly.
So tell me about the rest, the other three pieces that are going to be sold as a package. So the first one can be bought on its own, or it can be bought as part of the package, but the other three are going to be sold as a three.
Yeah. The first one is like a primer on what I know about how to befriend and kind of get into relationship with a client's system.
Mhm.
And there's many ways to do that. It's a, I would say it's a real primer. So I'm going to go through talking about the therapist parts of you that get activated with complex clients, but then moving into the kind of things I've learned that are important for clients who have had repeated relational violations in their young lives, and how to first kind of simplify that process, maybe for them, but also for you as the therapist to be in the room so that it's a we instead of not so much of depending on, okay, I'm in self, but can the client even feel that I'm in self? So how do we bridge that gap? I think there is a relational piece that could be added to this beautiful model, and that's what I'm going to help our students with. So then the next two classes, the last two in the series, are going to be about direct access. Because what I realized in working with highly traumatized clients is that I do a ton of indirect access, and people don't know how to do that because it might look like talk therapy on the outside, but
Mhm.
it's really not.
Mhm. Mhm.
And you're still doing IFS when you're doing indirect access well. The key with implicit direct access is that you don't ask for permission to talk to a part, but you know you are talking to a part.
Mhm.
And so there's a whole lot more that's going on inside you that isn't stated.
Mhm.
And it's how you meet clients who are very complex, who have no idea how to go inside. They don't know what you mean. It's a way that you use the model through really careful attunement. You
Mhm.
build a relationship with them so that they can then learn to go inside or find the safety to go inside.
Yeah, yeah. And I imagine too, you named this a little bit earlier, but there's probably so many different things to hold and to look for when you're using implicit direct access that aren't similar to talk therapy, right? The ways you're listening for parts, different parts that are coming in, and the way that you're attuning to the different parts, and the way that you're holding the container essentially for the client and their system.
That's right. Yeah. And then some emphasis on direct access, which is another skill that I noticed. And I didn't have it when I left level one. We just, in level one and stepping stones, you teach the basics of the model, which is fantastic, right? But you don't have time to add all the nuances. Well, direct access is hard for a lot of people. They have parts come up that
Mhm.
don't like it, feel uncomfortable, etc. So it requires some practice. Both those skills do. And that's the last class, which will be tons of practice on both of those skills. So that's the plan. These are the skills that I wish I had had fresh off of level one. And I was in my office and feeling like I was floundering. And I wish somebody had come in with these three skills, right? The first one being, oh, you can externalize parts, right?
Mhm.
In a variety of ways, any way that works. Second is, you can be in the room. You know how to do that. You're still building a relational container with your client, even though you're doing IFS, and that's not necessarily emphasized. And then the third is implicit direct access is so powerful and so useful. And I didn't know how to do that. Plus, I had a lot of resistance to direct access.
Mhm.
Parts that inside me were like, this feels way weird. You know, Dick Schwartz can do it, but for me, not easy. So
Mhm.
I go in and out of all of these skills in any given session. So, I have those clients who come in and they just do an insight IFS session every single week, but I have other clients who just don't. They they require these other Aikido skills of IFS.
Mhm. Yeah. And I imagine it brings a lot of flow to the sessions too, when you're able to pivot and you just have more tools in your toolbox when it comes to using them.
True. You know, at first you get them in your head, right? You learn them in your head, your thinking parts. But then over time, as you use them, they become embodied. And then you can bring a ton of self energy as you're using these different skills. So these 4 classes are aimed at giving people, this is what I need to try when this happens. And then as they practice, they will integrate them.
Yep. Yep. And I'm imagining that confidence as they do it is adding to that self energy, right? Then the more they practice. Yeah.
True.